Depression is one of the earliest psychological defense mechanisms discovered by Sigmund Freud. When people think of depression, they often associate it with sex, primarily due to Freud's focus on sexual taboos and repression. However, depression encompasses a much broader range of experiences. All unacceptable or painful feelings, such as anger, guilt, or sadness, can be repressed from one's consciousness. Essentially, repression involves avoiding or running away from certain types of pain. Repressing feelings from consciousness doesn't mean they disappear. Instead, they sink into our subconscious. Many people who repress negative feelings express them indirectly and covertly, often without realizing it. This is known as passive-aggressive behavior. For example, if a colleague offends you and makes you feel uncomfortable at work, instead of directly expressing your anger or responding aggressively, you might procrastinate or complain a lot when working with them later. You might even refuse to work with them altogether, trying to forget the unpleasant incident. Many people cannot recognize their own anger and repress their awareness of it, but the anger finds its own outlet through passive-aggressive behavior. Denial is one of the most common defense mechanisms. It occurs when a person refuses to accept reality or facts, blocking external events or circumstances from their mind to avoid dealing with the emotional impact. In other words, they avoid painful feelings or events. This defense mechanism is widely recognized. The phrase "they're in denial" is commonly understood to mean that someone is avoiding reality, even if it's obvious to those around them. When we engage in denial, whether it's about feelings or facts, we are denying our own consciousness. By refusing to accept certain facts that we may subconsciously acknowledge, we split our consciousness and ignore parts of it. For example, many people deny or cannot tolerate their dependence on others, even though, as humans, we naturally rely on others to fulfill our needs. This often stems from early experiences where reliance on others led to trauma and feelings of betrayal. As a result, these individuals may deny their own desires and adopt an overly independent stance. If your friends and family rely heavily on you emotionally and financially, but you never seek help from them, you might be denying your own needs and desires. "Don't take it out on me" is a phrase most of us have said or heard at some point, perfectly illustrating the process of displacement. Displacement occurs when you direct strong emotions and frustrations toward a person or object that feels less threatening, allowing you to react without risking significant consequences. A classic example of this defense mechanism is getting angry at your child or spouse because you had a bad day at work. You are mad, but you cannot express your anger to your boss because it may cost you your job. So you take it out on someone who didn't do anything to make you mad. Neither your child nor your spouse is the true target of your strong emotions, but your subconscious might believe reacting to them is less problematic than confronting your boss. However, frequently displacing your anger in this way can harm your relationships with those you take your anger out on. It's crucial to recognize this defense mechanism and find healthier ways to manage your negative emotions. People who use this defense mechanism recognize their feelings but cannot accept them, leading them to behave in the opposite manner of their instincts. For instance, someone may believe they should not express negative emotions like anger or frustration, and, as a result, might react in an overly positive way. A common misconception, often perpetuated by the media, is that politicians who are vocally anti-homosexual and later found to engage in illegal homosexual behavior are exhibiting reaction formation. This is incorrect. Reaction formation applies to situations where individuals are unaware of their true feelings. For example, a young man might attack others coming out of a gay bar, not realizing that he is actually attracted to them himself. This is a true instance of reaction formation. F. Scott Fitzgerald once said, "The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function." Whether it concerns IQ or emotions, most of us struggle to achieve this balance. Instead of grappling with both sides of an argument, we tend to embrace one perspective while shunning the other. When confronted with an idea diametrically opposed to our own beliefs yet resonant in some way, it can trigger discomfort. To circumvent this discomfort, we often resort to a binary way of thinking, avoiding the complexities and uncertainties of the gray areas. This approach reflects a defense mechanism called splitting. When faced with intolerable complexity, we simplify it into two opposing parts, typically aligning ourselves with one side and rejecting the other. This simplification provides a sense of certainty and relief by eliminating the complexity. However, this tendency to oversimplify robs issues of their depth and vitality. For example, engaging in a conversation with someone who staunchly claims to possess absolute truth can quickly lead to feelings of despair and hopelessness. An ideal represents a perfect, exemplary, or outstanding standard. Idealization involves elevating an ordinary thing or person to this perfect status. Most of us instinctively understand this process, recognizing that idealization involves unrealistic hopes or expectations and often leads to the eventual collapse of illusions. The best example of this is romantic love. At the beginning of a romance, lovers appear flawless, seemingly perfect in every way. However, as time passes and the aura of idealization fades, we begin to see our partner's true selves. If the disillusionment is too strong, it can even lead to the premature end of the relationship. Beyond idealizing others, we may also idealize certain periods of our lives or even ourselves. Idealizing experiences involves believing that these experiences will fully meet our needs or solve all our problems. For example, someone might always believe that once a particular event occurs, their life will become perfect. Idealizing oneself involves believing that we never make mistakes, have no mental issues, or possess fewer flaws than we actually do. People who frequently use this defense mechanism subconsciously feel ashamed of their imperfections and will go to great lengths to believe that they are perfect, wonderful, and envied or admired by others. Projection does what all defense mechanisms are meant to do: keep discomfort about ourselves at bay and outside our awareness. People who are most prone to projecting are those who don't know themselves very well, even if they think they do. People who feel inferior and have low self-esteem can also fall into the habit of projecting their own feelings of not being good enough onto others. Racism and homophobia are examples of this type of projection on a broader scale. On the other hand, people who can accept their failures and weaknesses, and who are comfortable reflecting on the good, bad, and ugly within, tend not to project. They have no need, as they can tolerate recognizing or experiencing the negatives about themselves. Projection refers to unconsciously taking unwanted emotions or traits you don't like about yourself and attributing them to someone else. Some thoughts or feelings you have about another person may make you uncomfortable. When people project those feelings, they misattribute them to the other person. Projection often looks different for each person. With that said, here are some examples to help you get a better understanding of how projection might play out in different scenarios. If you're out to dinner and someone keeps talking and you interrupt, they may accuse you of not being a good listener and wanting attention. If you strongly advocate for an idea of yours at work, a coworker might accuse you of always wanting your way, even though you tend to just go along with their ideas most of the time. Your boss insists you're lying about the large number of hours you put into a project when they're the one who's cutting out of the office early and not meeting deadlines. When faced with a challenging situation, you might choose to remove all emotion from your responses and instead focus on quantitative facts. This is known as intellectualization. Intellectualization reduces anxiety by thinking about events in a cold, clinical manner. This defense mechanism allows us to avoid the stressful, emotional aspects of a situation and instead focus solely on the intellectual components. You might see this strategy in action when someone spends their days creating spreadsheets of job opportunities and leads after being let go from a job. Another example is a person who has just been diagnosed with a terminal illness. They might immerse themselves in learning everything about the disease to avoid distress and remain detached from the reality of the situation and their feelings about it. While focusing on our bodies and feelings can help us understand how we truly feel, overemphasizing rational thought may lead us to neglect our emotions entirely. Even if you sense negative emotions, you might still divert your attention from your body to your rational thoughts. In doing so, you can avoid uncomfortable feelings. Sublimation is a defense mechanism that allows us to act out unacceptable impulses by converting these behaviors into a more acceptable form. This type of defense mechanism is considered a mature, positive strategy because it involves redirecting strong emotions or feelings into appropriate and safe activities. We all experience unwanted impulses or urges from time to time. For instance, we might feel the urge to yell at someone who cuts in front of us at the store, or to flirt with an attractive person even though we are in a committed relationship. How we handle these feelings can influence whether we engage in acceptable or socially unacceptable behaviors. Acting on these urges inappropriately can lead to problems, so finding suitable ways to manage such desires is crucial. Sublimation helps people deal with these urges in an acceptable way. Through this process, unwanted impulses are transformed into something less harmful and often even helpful. For example, if you are overcome with anger, rather than flying into a fit of rage, you might channel your angry emotions into a physical activity, such as cleaning your house. After spending a few hours angrily scrubbing your kitchen and bathrooms, your feelings eventually subside, leaving you with a positive result: a sparkling clean home. Similarly, instead of lashing out at your coworkers during a stressful shift, you might choose to channel your frustration into a kickboxing class. This form of venting can also be redirected into creative outlets like music, art, or sports. Sublimation transforms negative impulses into behaviors that are not only less damaging but sometimes productive. Freud believed that sublimation was a sign of maturity and allowed people to function normally in socially acceptable ways. By using sublimation, individuals can navigate their intense emotions and impulses in a manner that benefits both themselves and their environment.